There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. Welcome back to another episode of Big in the Community. We're going to start off with a quote. It's easy to say, it's not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. Then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes. That's Mr. Rogers' wonderful childhood TV show that I think was aging out as I was a child, but my brother remembers it wonderfully. But we're here with a couple of my heroes. I know, it's corny.
So kind.
Well, we're here with Abra Smith and Viridiana Carvajal, co-executive directors of Kalamazoo Youth Development Network. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you guys doing?
Thanks so much for having us.
You good?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah, we're good.
All right. So we'll jump into the first question. How long have you both been serving as co-executive directors at Kid Network, and what brought you to this role? We'll go with Abra first.
Okay. So this is actually a new role for us. We've both been connected with Kid Network over the years in different capacities, but we officially became co-executive directors in April of 2024.
Nice. I was excited when I saw you guys were named as the co-executive directors.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah. I've been on the board for about 3 years, I think, almost as long as I've been at the Promise. So I've seen the work that you guys do, and it is amazing. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Thanks for seeing us.
Yeah, of course. So could you each share your personal journeys with us? Who are Abra Smith and Viridiana Carvajal?
You want to start? All right. So our personal journeys. So I always say I'm a product of the out of school time sector, which Kid Network is a part of. I was in after school programs. I loved my after school setting, summer school setting as well. I was a big time summer camper. And just developed so many relationships. There was a sense of freedom, that I had there, and just connections with adults and, the youth that I was with. I also grew up in a really large family, and so just family and connections, community has always been a big part of who I am. So because of that, when I went away to school, I thought I wanted to be an optometrist. That's how I ended up in Michigan from Ohio. I went to Ferris, and I really just started doing some soul searching that first year. And optometrists got paid well, but it wasn't what would fulfill my heart, I realized. Yeah. And so I decided I wanted to do what would fulfill my heart. And in that soul searching, I realized how important youth and youth development, were to me. And at that time, there was no youth development field or, program for school. So the fit that I saw at that time was to be an educator, to teach. And so I started taking education classes and just loved them. I started a young women's group on campus as well. And we had amazing, community support and activities and programming. And so really enjoyed that, and became a teacher when I moved to Kalamazoo. And really connected deeply with my students, with their parents. I'm still in contact, with a lot of my students and their parents and caregivers, even many years after teaching. And so I guess I would say I am a community connector, a lover of people. I went into teaching because I wanted to help to impact youth. I had a very difficult middle school time. I lost my father around that time, hormonally, being a teenager is just already difficult in itself. And I wanted to give back to youth, especially in that age group, that middle school, high school age range, where you're dealing with, some difficulties. And so I wanted to be a positive influence and help them to realize their potential and see what I saw in them. And so now I feel like being at Kid Network, I'm able to do that in an even larger capacity, beyond one classroom, where I can impact youth, having equitable programming, to incorporate wellness, to know who they are, and to really be empowered to make an impact in their community.
Nice. Vidi?
My personal journey really starts with my parents. So my parents are Mexican immigrants, and because of that, I grew up in two different cultures in a way. I grew up here in the United States, and when I was 6 years old, I went to Mexico and lived there for 6 years, and then came back. So throughout that time, it was difficult to find a sense of belonging in both very different cultures, right? And throughout my school years, I've always have felt the need of that belonging and authenticity in the spaces that I'm in. So throughout high school, really, I love teaching in some form throughout like my journey, my career. So in high school, I started tutoring younger youth, and I fell in love with that, right? Then I came here to Kalamazoo. How I got to Kalamazoo was through college. So I graduated from K College, and throughout my years there, I worked in after-school programs like CIS, CAPS, over at Interfaith Homes, the Kalamazoo Public Schools, and then a program that was housed in K College as well. Because of that, I wanted to go into teaching, specifically in math. So I major in math.
Okay.
That didn't work out. And I switched my major, right, and focused in psychology. So somehow that child development pieces of youth. So in that, I found that maybe teaching wasn't my thing in specifically in the schools, but in after school programming. And that's where I started working, at CIS and doing that youth work. That I fell in love with it. I fell in love working with kindergartners at the time, and ultimately, being in the position that I'm in now. But really, like, when I talk about my journey, it really starts with my parents, and like, because seeing them trying to find a place where I could belong and like be myself was difficult at the time. Now I put that hat on me, right? I have 3 kids that I'm like, is there a space for them out in the community, right, where they can be authentic and be who they are, and for others, right, that are not their parents or their family, also pour into them how we pour into them as parents, right? So that's kind of a little bit of me.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that, both of you. I think it's amazing how people kind of find their way to the work that they're in now, finding their kind of like their passion, what they see as a need, some that's important to them, maybe some that they didn't have as a kid. I always say that when I first heard about KidNet, I was like, this is awesome. Like, why? I didn't know about it when I was a kid. I don't know. I forget how far back it goes, but I don't think it was around when I was a kid, many years ago. But it's definitely important now. I think COVID exposed a lot of things that are lacking or needs that need to be addressed for kids.
For sure.
I know there was the social emotional learning kind of came out of that. When my son, he was, he's on his computer. I'm like, what are you doing? He's just like talking and laughing. I'm like, aren't you in class right now? He's like, oh, this is SEL. I was like, what is that? You just hanging out with 3 other kids from the class, just talking about like Roblox and Minecraft and, but it was that social aspect, that belonging piece. And even with diversity, equity, and inclusion, now I saw they added belonging. So it's DEIB at the end of it. So it's definitely important work. So thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I think you already addressed this as far as what led you to develop a passion for youth development. So we'll skip that question unless you want to add anything.
No, I think that sums it up. Vidi kind of mentioned, her children as well. I have 2 boys too, and I really believe in the motto that it takes a village, the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. And so in a way, I feel like, the Kid Network cohort is a village of many different youth development organizations, that support the youth in Kalamazoo, and a lot of youth cross-pollinate, I guess, go to various programs, kind of, like I did as a youth. So
nice. All right. So how do you engage with the Kalamazoo community in your respective roles at Kid Network?
So we have, as co-executive directors, of course, we both make final decisions and partner together to make decisions. But we do have specific roles that we oversee. And so one of the areas, or a couple of the areas I oversee is kind of the community outreach aspect, youth leadership, which also is a lot of community work. And then some of our systems work. So that's the kind of the department area that I oversee within Kid Network.
Yeah. So
and wellness.
Yes. Don't forget wellness.
That.
For me, it really is the program development aspect of Kid Network, and that is the out of school time program development coaches, right? Which is their interaction to work with organizations. So that's how my role engages with them. That ultimately engages with the whole community as a whole, right? That and then some parts of the systems work as well with Abra. So our role is really like, yes, we have our kind of lane, if that's the best way to describe it. But we also have a lot of things that we intersect in within our work. I'm also a coach, so we're both coaches as well. What that means is we also coach organizations the same way that our OSC development coaches do. And part of that is because with the engaging part with the community is so that we don't lose touch of what of our organization's needs are, that we're also able to like be in the same rhythm as the rest of the coaches as well, and support and see really like what are the needs and what are the supports needed out in the community as a whole.
Nice. So in your work, you emphasize wellness, holistic practices, quality youth development. How do you collaborate with local organizations to bring those elements into youth programming? Kind of like the how behind the mission.
Sure. So as Vidi mentioned, the coaching aspect is kind of like our foundational element of what we do. And then I guess you can say everything else branches off from there, but it's all connected. So we work with about 50 to 60 organizations in Kalamazoo and Calhoun counties.
Wow.
And
lot.
It is, yeah. So each organization is assigned a coach, and that coach partners with that organization. So we say, consider us as additional staff to support you and whatever your specific goals are. We connect that with data. So we go in to do observations. We turn that data right back over to the organization for them to celebrate what they've done well, to specifically look at areas that they're excited about growing and improving for their youth. because we know that as adult skills improve in space, then that helps the atmosphere for youth to improve. And so they create their goals, and then we just partner and walk alongside them to help them in fulfilling those goals. So whether it's training or specific coaching or resources or technical assistance, we support them with that. We also convene several affinity groups. So Vidi helped me with all the names. But we have a social emotional learning affinity group. So people that are specifically interested in that topic and really want to be on the cutting edge of that and collaborate around that come together for that affinity group. We have an inclusion and equity affinity group. And so people that are really focused on that and, again, want the best practices and, research on that can come together to really see how we can implement it foundationally. Equity is really a lens that we look through with everything that we do. We also have a systems affinity group. So transportation is a huge issue within our community. There are so many youth that want to be a part of after-school programs and summer programs and can't because they're not able to get there. And so we're really trying to collaborate as a community to figure out how we can get more youth into programs and have a collective system for transportation with that, or ways to get them there. So that affinity group focuses on that. We also have a summer learning affinity group, which actually starts in the winter to start planning for the summer. So all of the summer activities and ways that our organizations can collaborate together around meals, again, with transportation, by neighborhood, just to have that collective coming together. We also have a Black and Brown Leaders Affinity Group. And so it's a space of healing and growth. And it could be people that have their own businesses and just want to sharpen their skills together within the community and networking, or to expand their skills even as youth developers, or just to, be in a space where people can see others that look like them and have similar experiences and grow in the same areas. We always have some type of wellness-related skill during those, a best practice, networking, and then resource sharing with that. We also have a white anti-racist affinity group, and so it's a group of white people that come together in our sector to, again, heal together, to make mistakes together, to talk about things that they may want or need to work out so that they can support with issues of equity and being, what's the word I'm looking for? Using their, privilege and power to be a support, within the community. I feel like I'm missing one.
Youth leadership.
Yes.
Is our last one. And that one really is for, it has two different parts to it. One, with Youth Advisory Council coaches. What is it called? Advisory people in their organizations. So that's a space for them to talk about, what are the best strategies when you have a Youth Advisory Council in your organization, and the support between each other. That's the space for that. But also, what does youth leadership look like in programs and organizations that do not have youth advisory councils, and at the different levels, right? We always get questions of like, I have kinder through fifth grade. Where do I implement youth leadership, right? So those spaces are for that, to really talk about strategies and ways that we can start implementing that youth voice choice. And it doesn't always need to be in a youth advisory council, right? But there's a different levels of it through programming.
And we also convene the community through Action Fridays. It's one of my favorite events that we do. It's the second Friday of every month. We have a different topic around youth development or community related topics that people we discuss those topics, we collaborate, we share ideas, and we leave with some sort of action connected to that topic. So it's not just discussing, but we actually follow through. And a lot of that work that happens in Action Friday ends up funneling out into the affinity groups. So the work continues within the affinity groups. And then we have training. So we call them, instead of professional development, we call them communities of practice. So we do those a few times a year. That are based in the data that comes out from our cohort members, and so specified training for youth development advocates. And then we have a new program called the Community Peace Project. And so that is a collaboration with wellness and really resiliency and healing strategies. And so it's a group of youth and adults that have come together to learn and be trained in the community resiliency model deeply, and another model called restorative response. And they're able to take those skills, use them for themselves to self-regulate, and also to share them in their community spaces. And so we convene every other month with that group. So there are a lot of ways we're connected in the community.
There are. I remember when I first started at the Promise, my supervisor said, you need to go to these Action Fridays. So I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. And I was like, this is so really cool. Like, it was, I would take things from every Action Friday and come back to work and say, hey, we should do this. Like, why aren't we doing this? Or like you'd say, I learned, like, you know, this is a red flag in your organization. If not to say anything about our organization, but if there was something, I then knew to say, oh, like to speak up about it. Which I'm not a young professional, but I would say, like, as someone new to the field of nonprofit and having advocacy and being able to speak up, I learned a lot of skills from KidNet. From Action Fridays, from the different affinity groups. It was a lot. Like, it was a lot to take, and I was like, whoa, like I had no idea. So I was still like kind of new, kind of young to these ideas and things. So it was even just the youth having a voice, the people who the decisions are being made about, and they are being affected by it, not being able to say anything. That's a huge thing. Yes. So
nothing about us without us.
Yes. And like one of the things that we've talked about Can Network is through all these convenings and external events that we do is to really empower, the community and those that are working with youth. Yeah. To have that, right? To have a voice, to have a choice, to bring it to their organizations and say, hey, have we tried this, or have we looked at it in a different way, right? And part of the feedback is that, like, the empowerment piece. That with a lot of the work that we do brings.
I like how you adapt. Like, oh, we're starting this affinity group because we saw a need for it. Yes. We heard things from different people in the community. It's not just like, you know what, we're gonna start this thing and everybody needs to get on board. Yep. So I appreciate that.
Grassroots community voiced.
So I'm going to skip a couple questions because I think you already answered them. We're going to go to, how do you maintain your passion and focus on a field that requires balancing so many roles, from leadership to direct youth engagement? And I'm going to be taking notes while you answer this one, because I feel like that's a tough thing, like maintaining your passion. Like, I'm in my master's program right now, and there's been some things that come up that where it's like, we kind of just keep things content as far as like public administration, like keep both sides of an issue content, not happy, content, and not really solving problems, just kind of addressing them. Like, if unhoused population, if that's an issue, let's do something to address it, but not necessarily solve the problem. Because then it's people on one side will say, well, you're wasting our tax dollars. And the other side will say, these are people who need help. And it's kind of, some of the stuff I was learning in the book said, like, you manage the tension between the two groups and not necessarily fix problems. So it's hard to stay passionate about something if that's your role. So I'm going to be taking notes while you answer this question.
Well, yeah, that is a tough one.
It's a big question to answer, definitely.
I think it definitely goes back to, a lot of business professionals talk about your why and, keeping your why at the central focus of what you do so that it can fuel you, so you can go back to that at any time when you're discouraged. Because honestly, it's a daily, like, uphill battle in a way, especially when there are discouragements that come along, when there's failure, when things don't go exactly, as they were planned, and when we still see so many, major issues within our community. And so I think part of it is, remembering that why for sure. Another part of it is like taking care of yourself, regularly. Like they say in the airport, you have to put your own, or in the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on first. And so, especially when it comes to like equity work in the community and dismantling oppressive systems that are prevalent, it's important that we refuel and refresh ourselves regularly. And so checking in, how am I doing? What do I need? Who do I need to communicate with or collaborate with, to support me in this? Taking little breaks, when things get heavy, and just, like I said, really remembering that why am I doing what I'm doing, and not taking no for an answer, when systems continue to system, in ways that are not equitable. So I think that's a part of it, just remembering your why, and being authentic with that, and making sure that there are still things that you do within your role that you enjoy authentically, as you tackle those more difficult, issues and problems. And the collaboration piece definitely being super important with that too. It takes a team. You can't do it on your own.
I'm really taking notes right now. I wasn't joking about it.
This could be a whole podcast topic. That's
yes.
so huge.
A lot of these questions.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Abra. I think remembering your why, it could sometimes get very discouraging. And I say that because the past 6 months, five to 6 months, and transition into this role, it has been that, right? Like how do we balance the work that we do? And now we understand, it was so much for just one person to do all this work. And for us, it's still a little bit too much, if I'm allowed to say that. It does, right? And sometimes it is discouraging, but we always go to the why. Like, why are we doing this? Why now? Why me? And for me, it's always remembering my journey through how I got to Kid Network and through how I got to my position. And always remembering going back to that kindergarten class and, working with you directly, right? Like, that's my passion. And if I wanted things differently then, I want things differently now, and going back to those memories. But yeah, I agree. It's difficult, and having the support and collaboration helps a lot.
Yep. I think there are periods of time too where we, and Vidi and I, try to support each other in our self-care and, accountability, but it's like, okay, for this period of time, we know it's going to be really, really busy and full. And so we're going to roll up our sleeves for this period of time, but we want to make sure that is not what, continues for the long haul. We want things to be sustainable. So we try to be very intentional to take breaks, to schedule time off, to create balance within our team structure, so that to help to prevent burnout, so that we can continue the work and remember our why, and so that we can be refreshed again for the work. And so it's just a cycle. There are periods of, where things are just very, very full, very, very busy. And that's not sustainable, for the long term. And so one of us, pulling and helping us to remember, okay, now it's time to balance. Now it's time to get back to being refreshed. I think a lot of times when I'm stressed, especially, you don't feel like yourself. So I remind myself, okay, what does it feel like when I am my best self, when I'm feeling good, when I am balanced and ideas and thoughts and the work just flows more effortlessly. And so I'll try to use that as a resource to pull myself back into that flow and that balance. And it's like I said, a daily thing. It's not something that, you just have down all the time. But it's constantly reminding yourself of that and getting back to that self-care and that why. So.
I'm definitely learning a lot from Abra in that aspect because I'm all like, work. And learning that piece of like wellness into your everyday life. It's hard. It's hard if you just transitioning to that, starting your journey there. Yeah. So we often talk about like how, just making sure you're intentional about it. Because again, like you have to take care of yourself first before doing the work too. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'd say before working here, it's more like get the tasks done. Get these things done. I know what I'm doing every single day as far as like my work assignments. And then here it's kind of like be innovative, like work hard, but like be innovative. And this is the first time I started incorporating those wellness things where I wasn't before. Like for some people, it's just like you're in survival mode. You're just, I'm going to work. And I come home, I sleep, I go to work, and I just get that done because that's what I have to get done. But then when you change from that survival mode to thriving and things are changing where you're taking care of yourself, like you're doing this holistic approach where you're taking care of your mental health, your physical health, your, all those things, not just, I get to work, pay my bills, and that's it. Like, and I'm not, anything that gets in the way of that, I kind of just cut it out. So I learned a lot going to Extra Fridays and being like, what? I need to do this and that. And I can say that in the workplace.
You can be authentic.
I can advocate. Right. I can talk the way I want to talk. I don't have to code switch and constantly the whole day. Like I can.
Beautiful revelation.
Right. It's a lot that goes into this work. So I think it's even more impactful the fact that you're doing this work with youth. Because, I was 30 years old when I started learning about this stuff. I didn't see an emotion wheel until 3 years ago. I was like, what? I'm just mad. I'm not dissecting like what caused it, what's the reason behind it. I didn't think about those things. So
you and me both. I so wish we had this language, growing up and to know how to self-regulate, to know how to process and be self-aware, even. So it's
I was just talking to someone who said their kid was coming back from preschool, and he was explaining how he was upset and why he felt that way. And he's like 5 or 6 years old.
Yes.
Like having emotional intelligence that young is crazy.
Yeah.
I was learning social emotional learning while parenting.
Me too.
My oldest now is 9, but when he was 1, 2, we were already practicing a lot of the SEL skills, right? That now their vocabulary has extended to say, like, this is how I feel, or these are my emotions. But when I was younger, like, I didn't have that vocabulary, like I didn't.
Yeah, it's crazy, like how it plays a role in like all of your life. Relationships, friendships, romantic, relationships. It's your relationship with your supervisor. Like it's so many different things. It's like, okay, if I'm showing up to work and I just seem pissed off, why? Like, I'm not actually mad at my boss. He didn't do anything. Or I'm not mad at my partner. I'm mad about something else. What is it? Is knowing me speaking out or acting a certain way isn't going to change the situation. There's all these different things. It's like, okay. And am I grounded? That was one of those little, getting grounded before a session. I was like, what? I get grounded. What does that mean? But it really was like doing that and realizing where you are in the moment is huge. Like it calms you down. It lets you focus on the work you're about to do. So for anybody listening who hasn't been to an Action Friday, you should go to one.
Yes.
Check it out.
Yes.
It's a great time.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. We got a little off topic, but I mean, it was on topic,
It was
but
the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could transform one aspect of youth development in Kalamazoo or anything else, it doesn't have to just be that. What would it be? Think big, because, goes with the theme of the show. What are your thoughts?
Can I say 2?
Sure.
However.
So, earlier we talked about the transportation piece.
Yes.
That is definitely,
what I was
huge
thinking about.
issue. Yep, see, one accord. Me and my work wife.
Yeah. That's how we call each other.
Yeah. You guys are all saying that at Action Friday. I was like, what? Y'all.
It's on our shirts.
Can
Yep.
like the whole team is work wives? That's interesting.
No, just the 2 of us
Just
are
the
work
2 of
wives.
us.
Oh, just
Everybody
the
has
2
their
of you.
nicknames.
I thought,
So that, yeah.
I feel like other people were saying they had work wives too.
Not
No.
on our team.
Oh, okay. Okay. There's some other interesting quotes at Action Fridays that I've heard before, but I'm not gonna bring them up now.
Yeah, but definitely transportation, for sure. Like, being able to get youth into the programs. At Action Friday, MASP came and joined us for the last one for the kickoff. And you remember the quote of how many youth want to be in after-school programs versus how many are not able to. There's just not enough programs, and then being able to get there. We are fortunate to have a lot of great programs in Kalamazoo, but it's just getting youth there, and I would say having the funding to be able to fully support, all of the programs too would be amazing. We just want to see youth that no matter where they live, no matter their background, no matter their race, no matter their socioeconomic status, that they're able to experience high quality programs where they can learn those skills that you were talking about, like self-regulating and social emotional learning and connecting, healthy relationships, with other people. Those are so pivotal, So I'm excited about this group of youth that's growing up now with that language, to see how they'll be as adults. I think that would be powerful. But to answer your question, definitely transportation being the biggest thing right now.
Yeah.
And with that, like the integration of like families, schools, and community as a whole in the efforts to make that happen. We know it can't happen. There's ways, but, for X reason, like it just continues to be a barrier. And transportation being a huge barrier for access to after school and summer programming. So I think, I agree with that.
Yeah. I know as a parent, I was always like, okay, what can my son go to that I don't have to go and get him? Yeah. I don't no, like seriously, our producer's laughing, but if I have to leave work to go pick him up, to take him somewhere else across town, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's a reality for a lot of parents is, that transportation piece. And it's a simple one, but it is a huge barrier. I can't take that time to go, run them around town. Unless, is that program after school, or is it after work time? But then, I'm tired. I gotta now commit to 2 or 3 hours to go run him to this, and I can't do what I need to do. It's a thing.
Yep.
It is.
It takes a village. It really does.
Yeah.
I had that situation yesterday. Like I had an event going on that I needed to be at. My son needed to be picked up, and then my other son had an interview. And so I was like, how do we, do all of these things? And so I can't imagine, with the different makeups of families and, access to different resources, how, it doesn't work right now. And that's something that we really need to boggle down on and put our brains together and our resources to figure out how to improve that.
Yeah. stuff. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I mean, I agree. Right now, our oldest is more involved in programming, after school programming, and summer programming. Even with like, I think about like a 2-adult household, right? Like even that is difficult to get your youth to programs, right? And growing up in also, earlier I talked about parents, but my mom was almost literally a single mother through my childhood. So even thinking about single households, right? It's even more difficult, especially if you have multiple youth in the household, right? So I think that transportation piece is important, and which is our focus this year. So take the survey if you haven't.
Yes, it's right on the website. So you go on it.
Kidnet.org.
Yep.
We are collecting data.
KYDnet.org.
I feel like systemically we're still working off of a 2-parent single income. Like that's how it all works. But not everybody has that, Anyway, that could be a whole other thing.
Yeah. There's so many big things we could bring up for that one.
Oh my gosh.
Wage equity.
Yes.
Let's see. What are some of your favorite things about living and working in Kalamazoo?
So being someone that loves to be in the warm weather, I have been in Kalamazoo for almost 20 years. And so there's something that, keeps me here. It's not the weather.
Right.
That's for sure. But really, I feel like it's the sense of community, that's here. I always tell people it's a great place to raise a family. It has been, for my boys. Just all of the opportunities and the collaborations and the connections. And there are really, really great people, here in Kalamazoo. But the arts, events and programs, and just that, my kids in particular have been able to explore so many different interests and opportunities because of what's available in this community, and actually be paid for them too, right. Which is amazing. And so I just really feel like the sense of community and collaboration and resource sharing, it's because of that, it's a great place to be and to raise a family. And, that's what traveling's for from time to time.
Right.
I've officially have lived in Kalamazoo for 9 years.
Okay.
So...
almost a decade.
Almost to those 10 years next year. And it's always hard to pinpoint, right? Like one, but in distinguishing, I love the weather here. I love the different seasons, stages. So I love fall and I love winter.
And say she's from California,
and
so
I'm
she
from
didn't have the
California,
4 seasons.
So we didn't see seasons over
Right.
there,
You
right?
can get 4 in one day.
And like that's the other piece. Like, yes, the community here, the collaboration, and also like the living costs. It is much lower than California. My mom and my sisters follow me here. Because of how low the cost of living is. Yeah. So to think that I would go somewhere else, I don't think so. And it's not. Yeah, it's pretty expensive. I also, it's a small city. That I want my kids to like have that. I lived in a big city, and I mean. I was there. I liked it, but not to raise my children. So part of that is that there are some of my favorites, some of the things that I like here in Kalamazoo. it's very small, you know, in the community and in collaboration. So,
Would you say you've developed a sense of belonging here?
Oh,
yes, I think I have in different ways. Like I've met people. Those people have become my friends. From like not knowing anyone, because we literally have no family here. And, you know, it's just my sister, my two sisters, and my mom, and of course my partner and my kids. But it's that, like, it goes back to that chosen family too, that I've found here in Kalamazoo. For being so small.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
I like that. Okay. This is some good stuff. I don't think we're going to get through all the questions, but it's very good stuff. How do you believe your involvement in Kid Network has shaped your lives? And what advice would you give to someone considering a similar path in youth development?
Well, part of it, I would say, so the social emotional learning aspect, Vidi kind of mentioned this earlier too, but I have grown so much being a part of Kid Network. I actually had a decision to make earlier on where I could be with a different organization who I loved and was great, or to be with Kid Network, you know, in its earlier phases as it was still growing and developing. But even in its earlier phases of growing and developing, I grew as a person, just individually, so much. It expanded, you know, my thinking, my horizons. It made me think differently about how I see equity and how that shows up in my life. It made me think differently about how I parent my children, and helping them to have more of a voice, you know, in our family and choices and, you know, just a collaboration, you know, with them, regardless of their ages. It also allows me to do many things that I love. So when I was in the classroom, I could do that one thing, I could teach. And I kind of expanded and did a couple things while I was teaching. But with Kid Network, I'm able to impact youth development. I'm able to share my love for wellness and for helping people to be whole and holistically, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so really being able to share the resiliency skills and other holistic wellness skills is important for me and great to be able to do. And that community aspect. Like I said, when I was teaching, I really connected with my students and their families. I did a little social work after I left the school system too. And so connecting with families, impacting youth, and wellness as a whole is super important for me. And I feel like I get to exercise all of those muscles, you know, being in Kid Network. I've always somehow fallen into leadership, you know, as well. And so I feel honored, you know, to be in this position and to be able to serve other people and to help them to feel like their best selves by being able to touch all those different areas. So I take it as an honor. I don't take it lightly. And yeah, I love that I get to serve in many different capacities that I have passion and gifting for. So
nice.
It has, so maybe disclaimer, I've been with Kid Network. Tomorrow, Saturday, I make 2 years.
Oh, anniversary.
Yes.
What's your work wife got planned?
Right?
I can't tell you.
But I've been knowing of Kid Network and doing the work since about 2015, 2016. So it's not that I'm like, you know, too unknown of the work of Kid Network, but it's different being a cohort member and now being part of the work inside, right? And that for me has made I've seen change at the personal level, and just individual, like as an individual, because of my my journey, my personal journey. there were pieces of me that I didn't like to, like, I wasn't authentic, right, in many places that I've been in the past, either jobs, school, whatever that was. And being at Network has showed me, I've learned how to do that, how to be myself, how to, like, just knowing what that is, that has also been passed down to my kids, right? My kid, one of the things, you know, at the beginning we talked about, like, pronouncing names, right? And my oldest, like, says no, like, that's not how you pronounce it, right? Yes. And corrects people. And growing up, I just let people call me, you know, and, like, they would just be like, V, and I'm like, that's me, right? And, like, because I didn't know how to correct that, I wasn't empowered to do that, right? So being at Can Network and being empowered by even coworkers and everyone at Can Network has, I've learned how to empower my own kids through that. And I think with the work that we do is what I want to do. And not just with the youth, but mainly with the adults. Working as an after school coordinator, I realized that a lot of our adults need that empowerment too. Right? We always talk about the youth, but our adults also need the same thing. They also need social emotional learning, right? They also need coaching and growth to focus on themselves, wellness, and what that looks like. So for anyone that, you know, wants to do this work, wants to go through this path out, like, do it. There's resources. Kid Network is here as a resource, right? To really empower them. And if they have that passion, do it. You know, you don't know where that's going to take you, or to what level you want to work with youth. But also, I think one of the other things that we work with is, what does that path look like for someone that wants to be involved in youth development work?
Truly. You brought up a good point with the authenticity too. I think that in listening to you, like, following my heart, following the authenticity and who, you know, what I was really passionate about inside, you know, led to amazing things. It wasn't, you know, what I initially sought out, but it turned out to be even better. Because it's more, you know, it comes from an authentic place. So I think that's huge. So I would say, follow your heart. Like, what do you authentically want to do? And just focus on that, and everything else, you know, will align. The people, the connections, you know, the resources, the opportunities. But do something that feels authentic for you, in a place that feels authentic, and let the rest grow from there.
Okay, I like it. Well, this is good stuff. I have one more question if you guys have time. It's been about an hour, so I just want to make sure before I ask. Okay. If the promise was available to you, how would that have changed things for you? If it would. Doesn't always.
Wow. That's a big question. I don't know. I think can you repeat the question one more time?
If the Kalamazoo promise was available to you, how would it have changed things for you?
The financial burden of my family, definitely. My younger sister receives the Kalamazoo promise because, again, I said my mom followed me over here. At the time, we didn't know about the Kalamazoo promise until, you know. So I definitely saw the financial burden be almost taken out from my mom. As a single household, is a lot to send 3 daughters off to college, right? And that's, my sister is our last one, right? My second sister, she has a master's now. So, and I was the first one. So even from being the first one, like, just knowing that you get the support financially for tuition, like that's huge, right? For many families that can maybe not be able to afford college for their youth.
Yeah.
So I definitely see that the burden being taken off, the lift, being able to breathe. Right? They're like 4 years. And we were like back, and like my sister and I, my middle sister and I, we're like almost back to back. We're 3 years apart. So while I was in college, she was going into college. So you could have only imagined.
Don't catch a break.
Right? Like my mom didn't catch a break. Right? So now that I live here and my kids are going to KPS schools, right? Well, my oldest, my right now my 4-year-old just started preschool, but they will, right? So like that is like a huge like support for us, right? Like for Moises and I, to know that like that could be like that is available, right? And knowing that we were first generation,
yeah. It changes things.
It changes things, yes. So I know for that aspect, definitely like thinking about my mom as like being able to breathe financially, and the support that she could have had, right, with the other two. Now with our third one, it's like, oof, good, and I support her somehow, but it's like it's not as much as it when I went in. And coming to K College wasn't cheap.
Right.
So
great institution.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
Costs a little bit more, but it's fine.
Yeah, I agree with that economic empowerment piece. Actually, so a little earlier I spoke about, this being a great place to raise a family, and, I had an opportunity to leave. My family's in Ohio. So when I was going through a pretty difficult experience, it was actually a consideration to leave. And the Kalamazoo Promise is one of the major reasons that I did not leave, that I stayed. At the time, my son was just starting high school, and so close, The other one will be starting high school next year. My oldest is a senior this year, so he'll be receiving the promise.
Nice.
But to be able to give him the gift, them the gift of not having to worry about loans and, or to the magnitude, that I had to worry about it. There's just, if I didn't have to pay the loans that I've had to pay for so many years, like I think about like what more could I have done, the savings, the economic empowerment that I could have, created. And so being able to give that to my children is huge. It means the world. It takes such a burden off, seriously. So, yeah, I just kind of thought about that as you were asking that question. That's really the main reason why I stayed in Kalamazoo, to be able to give them that gift. And so grateful for that.
I think of it like I don't want to say a time machine. My brother, he would always say this thing. He said, like, the second that they invented the car, it was like a time machine, because the amount of time you have to spend to go somewhere is instantly gone, or is shortened. And I kind of think about that as far as like resources in the community. If, you don't have to pay back loans, then when you graduate college, you're saving money for your down payment for your house. Then you're it kind of fast forwards where your life is going to go. Especially like with my wife and I, like when we graduated, we had minimal debt. And so then it was moving to an apartment, save up for a little bit, get in the house, like much sooner than we would have. Yeah. Like I see other couples who are like, they've been in an apartment for a long time, and it's because they're still paying off that debt or they're paying something off. And it just kind of speeds things up. And I'm always grateful for like where we're at right now, because it could have been so much more different. Yes. So, yeah.
I agree.
Do you have any questions for us? I say us because then the producer will have to get up. Want to make it fair, so you can ask us questions since we asked you so many questions.
Yeah, I guess being a Kalamazoo Promise recipient yourself, what was it that drew you to, working with the Promise? Did it have a lot to do with receiving?
It, along the way, not the initial like, oh, I want to work there. It all started with I was trying to get the next position up at my old job. Didn't get it. Around the same time, I got an email from the Promise saying, are you looking for, it was a job posting. I was like, I'll apply. Like, why not? Just in case like this doesn't work out. I thought it was, and it didn't. So I kind of found my way here. But even in the interview process, going to like the second interview where I had to give a presentation of like why I was the right person for the job, I was like, oh, I actually do see myself in this. And then over time was like, telling my story and then like reflecting on what it did. It was really big. So not initially, but along the way, I figured it out. So
yeah, that's wonderful. Well, you do amazing work here. We see you out in community and all that you're doing and the way that you contribute and recognize that, and just want to, verbally express that too. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys too. You're my heroes. All right. So kidnet.org, right?
KYDNET.org.
And contact you there. Scroll to the bottom, contact us.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate
and Facebook
you.
as well. We're also pretty active on Facebook.
Instagram.
Social media.
All right.
So. Nice. Well,
Action Fridays, the second Friday of every month, 10 to 12. It's on the website too.
Nice. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your story.
We appreciate the invite.